Rocky 99 with our Hearts Against Heroin campaign. And today's guest is Keith Elders. Keith is the Director of Peer and Recovery Support Services of ACRP, which serves Cambria, Somerset, Bedford counties.
Correct.
What does your job entail, first off, and what led you to this job?
As the Director of Peer and Recovery Support Services, we work with, at the moment, adults, so that's 18 and older, on the peer support side that have a serious mental illness as defined by the Office of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services. Those are bipolar, schizophrenia, major mood disorders, personality disorders, things like that are seeking recovery from that mental illness. And what we do in the program is, in order to be a certified peer specialist in the state of Pennsylvania, you yourself have to be a self-identified person in recovery from mental illness and be willing to disclose your past with those individuals to work with them on a peer-to-peer basis. And then on the recovery support side, it's the exact same thing, but strictly drug and alcohol. Now, in the world, both the mental health and drug and alcohol world, we very often get people that are dually diagnosed, that have mental health stuff and drug and alcohol. So depending on which route they're referred to is how we work with them, but the jobs are essentially the same.
So the way that this links into the addiction and substance abuse is that these are underlying things that people need to address.
Yes, sir.
When you talk about your past, the reason why you know a lot about this is because you also struggled.
Absolutely. So a little bit about that. As a newborn, I was born with severely clubbed feet in both my left and right feet. So I actually endured 6 surgeries by the age of 5, and then 2 or 3 more by the time I was in middle school. So pretty much from day one, I was on large doses of opioid prescription medication as well as barbiturates. The doctors were just throwing that stuff at me. I don't know if I was ever informed of the dangers. I don't know if my mother was ever informed of the dangers. I know she carries a lot of guilt.
Well, who would know? I mean,
right.
You have a baby with an issue. And
Yeah, so that led to, getting into high school is when I realized, obviously building a tolerance for being on them for 15, 16 years. I realized if I took a couple extra ones, I would feel better. And I needed so much more by that point. By the time I got to college, that was right around 2000 when the Oxycontin was booming at that point. You could pretty much walk into many doctor's offices and they would just throw them at you. So by the time I got into college, that's when I realized that you could party with them and use them not as they were intended. So,
what do you see as something that could have prevented Keith from this ever happening?
A few things. Number one, education of my parents, because again, they saw me reeling in pain and they'd give me what the doctors gave me and I would feel better. So I think maybe educating the parents on the dangers of opioid medication and just how addictive they really are. The other glaring thing is the doctors themselves. The pharmaceutical companies did not do a very good job of educating the doctors on the dangers.
And then how about education in schools, you think, for the kids?
It happens already.
Yeah.
I don't think we do it young enough. That is starting to change. So some of the prevention initiatives out there, they have moved from like the high schools to the middle schools. I'm not even sure if that's early enough. The sooner we start having these conversations with kids and educating them on the dangers, the real dangers of these, not just say, you don't want to be that homeless guy in the park, but really look and see, hey, the doctor could be struggling with this very same thing, the judge, the lawyer, the police officer. So really reducing that stigma that is attached to the demonization of people that struggle with substance abuse disorder and just having conversations with our kids. Like, this does happen. Just having that conversation and that basic education up front initially will pay off dividends down the road.
What was it that got you to stop?
Prison, my father dying, and my family cutting me off completely. The combination of those 3 things, kind of all in the same time frame. No one was answering the phone when I was calling anymore. No one was giving me money when I was calling with a sob story of to why my electric's going to get shut off or I have a hole in my shoe and I need new ones. No one was putting me a plate of food on the porch just to make sure that I could eat. No one was giving me a car to drive. No one was cleaning up my messes anymore. Now, that happened about 18 months prior to me stopping. So it got way worse for 18 months. And I can't even imagine what it was like for my mother and my family to watch that process happen. But I had caused so much pain and so much damage for about 10 years in their life that they literally could not do it anymore. I have a lot of family members reach out to me because they know what I do for a living and a little bit of my story. And that's what I always tell them. You need to define what love really looks like for you towards them, and how much do you want to get better, whether they do or not.